Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion right here, right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, before I introduce all of our guests, I'm going to do a few shout outs to all of you who've supported my current e-begging for an iPad GoFundMe campaign. So a massive shout out of appreciation to thedailyplane.com, Mr. Burn Fat, several anonymous donators, Michael Nyby Larson, Red Pill Philosophy, Rob Hunston, Sally Ballis, NZNZ, Colin Turner. Oh, God, I'm going to get his name wrong again. I want to say this guy's name right. I'm really sorry to keep you guys waiting. I just want to get this guy's name right. Gano. Hope I've said that right. Hanno Sauve. Thank you very much for your contribution. Scott Gammon, Chris Berry, Planner Walk, Fight the Flat Earth, Blue Marble Science, Simon Dan, NASA is Fake, Silver Umbrella, and Del West Watson. So massive shout out of appreciation to everybody who's supported my GoFundMe e-begging for an iPad campaign thus far. Now, we are joined by a whole bunch of people in both Discord and G Plus panels. So we've got Arwin, Chocolate Sane, 10th Man, Paul Hall, and Righteous Force in G Plus.
Morning.
Hello.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
So Planner Walk hooked you up, eh?
Yeah. Very good Planner Walk to support my e-begging for an iPad campaign. Very, very much appreciated.
Did you say Planet Walk, Blue Marble Science, Simon Dan? All of Really?
That's correct. Planner Walk, Fight the Flat Earth, Blue Marble Science, and Simon Dan. They all chipped in a little bit for my iPad. Isn't that generous? not quite there yet,
guys.
But
That's great.
I'll stick a link below the live stream once the show's rendered, so there's a link in the chat comments, so you can check out my GoFundMe campaign if you do want to support me. Wonderful. Any evidence of physical...
Maybe it's a good cause to come together, in the loss of the geometric horizons, physicality, and, maybe this is a good step in just coming together and just getting rid of that nonsense, because it doesn't exist. Never seen it. Sorry, I jumped all over your question.
No, that was the answer to the question. Just by coincidence, my question was exactly that. Any evidence of physical geometric Earth curvature?
No.
Only in a globe reification model.
It's quite an important part of that model, though, isn't it?
Yep.
It's marked with an X with the word horizon next to it in the model, and many of the things that they assert currently in defence of the Black Swan argument involve that physical geometric value of R giving you a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon. It just amazes me that they so quickly relinquish this physical geometric sphere edge apparent based on height they call the horizon marked with an X in their geometric model. It amazes me how quickly they are so willing to relinquish this physical geometric necessity for their geometric reification of a sphere Earth they believe they're standing on. You'd think they'd hold that dear to their heart, given that it's an absolute necessity for their assertion we're standing on a sphere. But yet they say it's refracted. amazing because when you actually ask them what they mean by refraction, they're utilising the very R value they've relinquished to bend light around a physical Earth curve obstruction they call the horizon at a rate based on the physical obstruction of the horizon when they don't have a physical horizon if they're bending the horizon at a rate of R. It amazes me how stupid people are when they assert that they don't have this physicality that's needed. Does it not amaze you guys?
Yeah, they're dancing all around it. They need it.
They
show
can
it in
always think of
pictures.
it as physical.
Yeah. You can think of it as being a physical geometric Earth curve obstruction capable of blocking distant buildings and capable of having boats go over it in a physical way to block the bottom of them when you don't have one. But that's quite difficult. It essentially makes the whole argument of a sphere Earth untenable.
Or conceptual, as they say.
Yeah, merely conceptual. Only attainable through an idea you can visualize but never experience in any sort of physical way. Like the physical model asserts the physical nature of Earth is sphere-shaped. Physically. So, of course, if you relinquish the physical aspect of that physical horizon, you've no longer got your physical geometry that you believe in. Amazing that they'd be so keen to relinquish it and claim the horizon's refracted at a rate of the physicality they don't have. But there we go, they're all idiots on the globe side. Any signs of any Earth curvature?
Not from the Golden Gate Bridge.
No,
Not
Earth
from the
doesn't-
Verrazano Bridge.
What's with all the bridges?
Not
I
from
don't know.
the
I'm just, I'm just copying you, tough man.
not not from the dentist who put a bridge.
The
Okay.
ballers are crapping their britches. Oh wait, that's another bridge.
What's up, Owen? Say again.
I said the ballers are crapping their britches. Oh wait, that's another type of bridges.
Bridges.
That was good, Arwen.
They
That was
burned the
good.
bridge to the geometric horizon. They burned that. Matter of fact, they've never even seen the bridge. It's great.
Any evidence of
That
axial
bridge?
rotation?
Gonna add to that.
Are you
No
gonna
axial
ask
rotation.
axial rotation? Yeah.
No Earth-based variety. That's for sure.
No actual rotation.
Axial, as in on an axis.
But no actual rotation either.
Fair enough. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Where can we find it?
Where's Sleeping Warrior when you need him, eh? Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
We knocked on that door. They don't answer.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Yeah, it's
It's over there.
Are you talking about any evidence for the so-called claimed astronomical unit?
No, I wasn't asking for that. I mean, if you want to rattle off Kepler's third law, I'll just ask you where you got your R value from to base the Earth sphere and Venus sphere on.
Oh, talking about scales of supposed things out there, right? Did you notice that ridiculous article I posted?
No. Where did you post it?
In the Ballbusters.
Oh, okay.
It's like a new science fiction story. Apparently, they saw something and then now they assume that a super massive hole at incredible distances away blew up, creating like a giant hole the size of multiple our Milky Way system galaxy. Blah. It's so overkill. It's just
How do we know they saw something actual? It could have been refracted.
well, celestial refraction maybe, but they try to conceptually account for all those presuppositions.
Supermassive black hole causes biggest cosmic explosion in recorded history, leaving dent that could fit 15 Milky Way galaxies. Dun dun dun!
Exactly. Yeah.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
How many Milky Way candy bars could fit in the Earth radius? If there was an Earth radius to
A
fit
lot.
them in.
Don't talk about Mother Earth that way. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
I'm afraid not, Nathan. All the other things can't be answered. This one's another made-up one.
Right, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
No evidence.
How do you test that?
No.
Well, there's a story that you can read your children about the rebellious gas particle, about the first pioneering gas particle that decided that it was going to stop moving unbonded at high speeds and just stop at an arbitrary position, later to be defined by humans as the Kármán line. Just a point in space where this rebellious gas particle said, "No more will I adhere to natural law. No more will I be shackled by the idea that I should occupy any available volume available to me. I will stop here. There will be no more travelling at high speed. There will be no more elastic collisions."
That makes sense. So basically, at some point in history, gas took responsibility for the Earth in order for life to be able to form there and breathe.
You're damn straight they did, and they knew how important that decision was, these sentient gas particles. They said, if we don't stop now, we'll never coalesce.
It gets worse than that, Nathan. They have to stop, and then they just decided to change the nature of who they were. They went from a gas to another element, and then they became solids. Oh wow, they transmutated themselves. It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
What, so they could bond together?
Yeah, they had to change their nature, change their state, or change the nature of who they were, so they could start bonding together.
Yeah, no, they said we will no longer be
the Earth,
gas.
so you couldn't feel the spin.
I think that's it. Is that all of the housekeeping questions? I think so.
Well, Paul, what's wrong with the kumbaya moment for gas?
Well, it just seems to have sentience, so they're, I guess, attributing sentience to gas particles.
Yeah, they've got to obviously decide at some point that they're going to violate natural law and not disperse into the available volume. You know, they had to make that decision, Paul. We are talking very specifically about sentient gas particles. These are... Let's not have a kumbaya for them either, 10th man. These are knife-carrying, gun-toting, rebellious gas particles.
Saying, I don't want to act like a gas particle anymore.
They were like the Clint Eastwoods of gas particles, you know. Just will take those shit, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I think I understand now. The gas particles are the controllers. If they still have the choice. Like, yeah, we can always just decide to follow the laws of entropy and leave everything to die.
Exactly, Alwyn. So really, they're the arbiters of everything, because they know that at a moment's notice, were we to piss them off, these sentient gas particles with knives between their teeth, that they could just carry on abiding by natural law and they could dissipate into the sky vacuum, leaving us dead, were they to choose to do that. So let this be a lesson to everybody. Don't mess with the gas particles. If you piss them off, they might decide to just follow natural law and disperse into the vacuum of the sky. And that would be terrible for everybody.
Yeah, and entropy is noticed or is registered as one of the strongest forces. So how could we possibly stop them once they go onto that decision to just follow their law? You know,
Be no stopping them,
no way
Arwin.
of stopping them.
There'd be no stopping them. Really, I think we should set up a committee and get government funding so that we can rationalise with these gas particles. Make sure that they understand that we need them and that we can have a symbiotic relationship. There can be peace
Yes.
and harmony between us and these gas particles. They don't need to
Yes.
follow law. It's helpful to us that they don't follow natural law because we'd all die.
Yes, we need
Radio
diplomatic.
check.
Hey, Babs.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I want to make a small presentation. Whenever you're ready, not to interrupt the conversation that's going on right now.
Well, it's important stuff, Babs. You know, we're going to be assigning ambassadors to communicate with
It
these
is
gas
important.
particles. It is. I'm
Yeah,
not joking.
that's why I feel like I'm interrupting right now.
Yeah. I mean, this problem might need considerable funding. You know, if we're going to have to lay down treaties, we're going to have to get into negotiations with these gas particles. It could be a very elongated and very expensive process. You know, I'm definitely
Yes.
going to need to...
Oh
Indeed.
dear.
It is.
Hey, can you imagine how difficult it must be to make amendments to natural law? Just think of how
Exactly.
difficult it is with the regular constitution. You know?
Exactly. I'm definitely going to need a new iPad to do this.
I mean,
Well,
it
they-
can't be
well,
that difficult. We see the Globers not sticking to natural law on a regular basis, so it can't be that difficult to do that. No.
Oh, conceptually, I mean, obviously all of this is just in the mind's eye of me and Arwin right now. But if we can spread this bullshit far and wide, this is going to be a real problem that needs money thrown at it in abundance. So I think we should
Right,
perpetuate
right.
this bullshit far and wide quickly. And I think you should be an ambassador for this bullshit, Babs. The sentient gas particles do need an ambassador, and I think you should be it.
Let's remember, I started this special shout out to those pioneer gas particles. I want to name them, if anything.
Don't
Shout
worry,
out to the
Chocolate, you
pioneer
have
gas
diplomatic
particles
immunity.
that don't follow gas law.
To gas?
You're gonna have to
I don't
bargain
think
with
so.
everyone.
Chocolate started it. He's got diplomatic immunity, so he's safe.
Can't touch this.
I accept.
Right, I think that's enough nonsense about sentient gas particles violating the natural laws that govern them. Babs, what you got?
Right.
Back to the really is level.
Back to the really is level.
Okay, we've got a bare bones Makeda projection on screen. Is that what you were hoping for?
Yeah. Okay, so this morning I quickly looked into how they were able to measure Earth's radius, and I discovered a few problems which I know that most of you are probably already aware of, but I wasn't until this point. But I just want to talk about these to see what your views are on these problems that I discovered so far. But in order to do this, I'm going to have to beg the question. So bear with me for a little bit. It will make sense at the end of this presentation.
No problem. If you can allow me to do some harp music before you start.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I
All
have
right.
actual harp music. Wait a minute.
What a shock. Arwin's got a harp. Why does that
No,
not
I don't have
surprise
a
me?
harp. No, not an actual harp. But I got a really good harp
Yes.
song from a computer game.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, Arwen doesn't surprise me anymore.
That's really valuable to this presentation. I'm in no doubt. Thank you, Arwin.
Sorry, I'm on mute.
Go ahead, Babs. Whenever you were ready.
Okay, right. So from what we know, they were able to measure Earth's radius based on shadows that were observed on the surface of Earth. And these shadows were recorded from two different data points on the surface of our Earth. And as we know, if we consider the Earth to be a circular spheroid, we would need to get 2 points that are along a straight line in order to form an angle that would make sense on a circle. So could you go to the next image, please? So this next image here illustrates what I'm talking about. If we have two rods in the ground we can measure the shadows that are made between the sun intersecting with these rods and the surface of the earth. The red lines being the rods that are in the ground, and the yellow lines being representations of the sun's rays as they intersect with the surface of the earth. Next image, please. Okay, so if we are to take a rod and place it on the ground, we can measure the length of the rod as well as the length of the shadow that is created by the light that's being cast on this rod to form a right-angled triangle. Once we have this right-angled triangle, what we're going to do is we're going to extrapolate an angle, which we're going to call theta, using this right-angled triangle. Next image, please. Okay, so now that we know that, was that an interruption?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so now that we have this right-angled triangle, we can use the arctan function. And the arctan function is a mathematical function that is the inverse of the tangent function. I'm not going to get into detail as to what that actually means because it's a whole lot of information that we can talk about on a different show. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to use the arctan function in order to calculate the angle that is made by the light intersecting with this rod and forming this right angle triangle. All right, next image, please. Okay, so as we can see here, if we consider the angles that are formed by the rod intersecting with the surface of the Earth on the two different data points, we can extrapolate that information and form a obtuse triangle using the rods as the slanted sides of the triangle, and the upper area of the triangle is going to intersect with the two lines that are formed by the rods, if that makes sense, to form a interior angle here, which we are going to calculate. So far, what we know is we have the two angles that we've measured from the two different locations, angle 1 and angle 2. And we can use those two angles to extrapolate what the interior third angle of this obtuse triangle is. How we do that is we know that every angle that falls on a straight line adds up to 180 degrees. So if we subtract 180 degrees by the angle of rod number 2, we are able to get the interior angle of this obtuse triangle. So we already have one of the interior angles just from doing that subtraction, and we have the first angle that we measured from the first data point. Once we have those two angles, we can subtract them to get the third angle within that triangle. All right, next image, please. All right, so if we consider that the surface of the Earth is spherical, we can use the data that we've got from the angles that were formed by those two separate data points to form a sector within a 360-degree circle.
Please, can you start Can you start that statement again, just for the audience's benefit? Can you start the statement once more? Just repeat it.
All right, I'll repeat the statement again. If we assume that we are on a spherical Earth, which is 360 degrees, like every single circle is, we can extrapolate a sector based on the obtuse triangle that we formed using the two angles from the two data points that we recorded earlier on. So once we have this triangle that is within this circle, or this sector that's within this larger circle, we can form a ratio between what the angle would be over 360 degrees, which would be the entirety of the circle, with the surface of the Earth represented as the distance between the 2 points as d, over the circumference of the Earth in kilometers, if that makes sense. So this ratio that we're looking at here is a ratio between the angle that is formed between the 2 points, which is also the distance between the 2 points. And we can use that to extrapolate Earth's radius, since we know that we can get the circumference of the circle just based on the distance that we've already measured here. So next image, please. Okay, so to get the radius, all we would need to do is to use this formula, which is the circumference of the Earth over 2 pi, which is equal to the radius of a circle. So since we've measured the distance between those two data points, we're able to get the entire circumference of that whole circle. And since we have that information, all we would have to do is use this formula to get the radius of the Earth that we live on. And this is how it was done so far. Okay, so a few of the issues that I had with this when I was first looking at it is they assume that the rods that are placed in the surface of the Earth form a triangle that intersects, and those lines intersect to form a radius. Like the sloping lines of the two separate rods are what you would consider the distance from the surface of the Earth to the innermost core of the Earth. And how do they know that? How do they know that those two rods, how do they know what the interior of the Earth looks like, that it is in fact spherical? And if we draw two lines from those rods that are in the ground, that they're going to intersect with each other at some point? How would you know that?
They
unless you actually knew what the interior of our Earth actually looks like? That's the first problem that I had looking at this.
They don't know that. You made that clear in your presentation. It's assumed. I can tell you why it's assumed exactly. As well, unless it's rhetorical, in which case I'll let you move on. Was it rhetorical?
It could be. I mean, if there's anything else you'd like to add to that, I'm definitely all ears right now.
No, the only reason that they've got the presupposition that you had clearly defined and laid out in your presentation, along with the fudging of the angles. Good presentation, by the way. The reason is because of Aristarchus. So Aristarchus made the first assumption based on shadows on lights in the sky. So based on that assumption that obviously the Earth is a sphere causing that shadow, that's where the assumption begins. Then from there on in, you engineer in the assumption with what are claimed to be measurements of a pre-existing, presupposed sphere that we're automatically standing on when they make the measurement. So there's no justifiable reason. It's merely a presupposition in this example.
Right. Well, I was unaware of that, because what I thought was that Aristophanes, or whatever his name was, figured that we were on a spherical Earth because the shadows in the northern hemisphere move in a clockwise fashion, while the shadows in the southern hemisphere move anti-clockwise. So that's how they were able to predict or assume that they were on a rotating spherical Earth.
Okay, well, that's a flaw in their logic, because those are relative directions that would change based on your position. So I can make my stars do the same by turning around. They can go the other direction just by turning around. So that's useless in terms of their extrapolation. Their logic doesn't hold true. But when you came to your last slide, your whole mathematics, the whole premise of the mathematics is based on the point where you assumed you were standing on a sphere when you made this measurement. So from there on in, all you're doing is affirming the consequent.
Exactly, yeah, because it has to rely on the assumption that you are already on a spherical surface. Because I mean, there's no other way you'd be able to predict that just by doing this. You would have to assume that the two rods that you've placed in those two separate locations are going to intersect with each other to form a larger obtuse triangle. But I mean, there's no way of knowing that at all in reality, unless you assume it.
Yeah, we have been saying that for 3 straight years here.
Right. I have heard you say that before, but I feel like when I actually went and looked into this is when it hit me and it made a whole lot more sense. That this is all assumed and it's not real at all.
Well, you're a step behind. It's an interesting segue because we've just come from talking about the Black Swan in the start of the show, housekeeping, then this. Because up until this argument, you can base the mathematics of their geometry, the physical geometry, giving you this Earth curve edge in its physicality. You can base that on the assumption and just justify the assumption. So we already knew, or we've known for many years and blart it out on the show continually, that they're assuming R. So we used to have the prayer, Radius Dominus Gravitas Spiritus Sanctus in R you trust. Well, that's because you can base this assumption in that R value, so long as the R value gives you a physical, geometric sphere edge for a horizon, marked with an X, labelled horizon, based on the R value. So, up until the Black Swan argument, this held true, and the only thing we can throw at it is you're just assuming R. In R you trust, Fundy. However, that's not true anymore. As much as, yeah, you can just say, you're assuming the R. How can you justify it? Well, they'd justify it by saying boats go over the horizon. NASA show you the horizon's bending into a sphere as you go up in height. Buildings are blocked based on the geometry and physicality of the sphere edge we're looking over. That's what they used to say, right? So all of that is now gone. In other words, it's useful that you've done this because it explains how they first assume R, and up until the Black Swan, how they could trust in R. But now they can't.
Exactly. Yeah, because a lot of them don't realize that they are, in fact, assuming R. So what I was attempting to do, even though it was sort of botched, I feel like I could have presented this better, was to reverse engineer this whole concept and see how they got to this place in the first place. And when I tried to do that is when these glaring contradictions became apparent to me. I started seeing that a lot of what they're doing was just based on assumptions.
Yes, so to round this out, if your R value is an assumed R value, and you're starting your baseline measurement to give you the geometric mathematics on that assumption of this R value, and then it's padded out, i.e. made real, made physical, made what you're actually standing on, by the claim to be predictions that the geometric model with an assumed R value makes. But the predictions, as I've just explained, are based on the assumption of physical geometry, the R value. So there's nothing to back up a terrestrial refraction-based R value based on an assumption of physical geometry, because you're relinquishing not only the physicality of the horizon, but the thing that backs it up is an assumption to begin with. So it's circular reasoning when you say the horizon's no longer physical, it's refracted. Well, what's it refracted? How's it refracted? Well, terrestrial refraction. Well, that's based on an assumption of physical geometry. So it goes back and forth and round in circles, but at no point are you actually affirming any physicality in that circle. Now, when they used to claim that boats have gone behind the horizon, or buildings are blocked by the horizon, based on their assumption that gives them the maths, that's confirmed by the observation of the physicality that the R value gives them, they're confirming, or they're affirming, the consequent. If Earth's a sphere, we will see a physical obstruction at the horizon. We see a physical obstruction at the horizon, therefore the Earth's a sphere. Begging the question, affirming the consequent. Well, beyond pointing out their logical fallacy, that was the end of the argument. You can still trust in R at that point. Until that
Right.
argument suddenly implodes on itself. If the Earth's a sphere with physical sphere geometry, we will see obstruction at the horizon at a rate of our mathematical prediction. We can't see that rate of obstruction because the horizon's not physical. Well, your first premise of that logic is that you've got a physical sphere edge for a horizon. So it implodes on itself. That's why it's so comical that people are claiming refraction right now. It's just habit. They're so used to saying it with a target that they don't realise that by continually following the same pattern when it comes to arguing for the physical geometry, the basis of their religion, that saying refraction makes their argument implode. Because you don't have an R value that's assumed to base this physical refraction value on. So you've got nothing, literally nothing.
Exactly. The fact that they don't have an R value, that takes apart their whole argument. And not just that, in reality, all we see is one horizon, an apparent horizon. But what they've done is they've taken that and said that it is the result of a geometric model or geometric horizon that's being refracted. But in reality, all we're looking at is an apparent horizon. So how are they able to reverse engineer that into a geometric horizon that is formed from a spheroid Earth? It just doesn't make any sense unless they have that magical R value. And
it doesn't.
We've seen that it's magical and it's make believe, and it doesn't exist.
Well, you can't. You're left with, I phrase this, a geometric impossibility. You can't have the R value change in physical terms. So that's why they're saying it's refracted. They presumably at some base level, they appreciate that the R value in its physical nature can't change. In other words, when you see the horizon behind these oil platforms, it's not that you've actually got a bigger ball suddenly and it's still physical. Therefore, logically, to their pea-sized brains, they say, oh, well, it must be non-physical then. Welcome to flat Earth. The starting point is an assumption of radius-based physicality that you're relinquishing in your argument. It's why it's going to take 12 months, Babs. I mean, it seems clear that the penny's dropped for you and you get it. We've only got one horizon. How are you going to back-engineer a physical horizon? Well, you can't. We've only got one of them. And it's the one you're looking at, saying is non-physical. So that's game over. You're not going to engineer in mathematically a second one. That's a contradiction in terms. We've only got one.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Even if they've achieved what their ends that you're describing, how do you back calculate this physical horizon from a non-physical horizon? They're all apparent. The geometric horizon's apparent based on height. So they're all apparent. This redundant term they've used to give us two is a ham-handed magic trick because it doesn't give them the ability to engineer or back-engineer, as you put it, a second physical horizon. That's poppycock. We've only got one apparent position where the sky seems to meet the ground, but the ground that it's meeting when you claim the horizon's based on R is a physical geometric location for boats to go over and to block buildings, not a refracted position based on optics that's going to change with the weather. That's a violation of the law of non-contradiction if you're claiming physicality to a sphere-shaped Earth we're standing on. You can't say it's a physical sphere Earth that's non-physical refracted. That makes no sense.
Yeah, and I know you said that it feels like we're beating a dead horse and we're never gonna get through to any of these fundies. But I'm not too concerned about the regulars that show up every single day. I'm more concerned about the people that are watching, because I know for a fact that some of these people are on the fence. They haven't received enough information to be convinced of the globe being a false model. So the more and more we can show them examples of this, I feel like we're providing them with supportive evidence for what we're talking about.
I completely agree. My appeal is always to the audience, and not knocking anybody on the panel, but often people on the panel don't get that. I'm not, going to single anybody out. Sleeping warrior! But they just sometimes want to convert the people they're talking to. They think that it's a necessity to actually have the person concede. Well, it's not. The fundamentalist religious zealots that come here will never concede. They'd sooner deny their own claim in the next breath than concede. Yes, we have a geometric horizon. Well, the horizon we see isn't geometric. Well, no, we don't have a geometric horizon, but you need a geometric horizon. Oh, we do. They're going to more likely than not contradict their own nonsense in the next breath. than make a concession. But the audience hears that. And in many ways, that's better to hear the fundamentalist religious zealot in knots than hear them concede. Because a concession would just be to the other fundamentalist zealots a cue to ridicule that person. Oh, well, you're just a convert to the fundies as they see us. You're just converting to the flat earth way of thinking. You didn't get that refraction was the reason when you conceded. You should have denied and stuck your head in the sand. Or double-speaked around it and said, we do, no, we don't. Yeah, we do. You should have done that. Because they can't comprehend what's going on. They'd rather the double-speak came, the zealots. But the normies that you're describing, yeah, they hear that, and it's much more effective.
Yeah, because the normies and the normal people out there, have logic and reasoning. They have those faculties that are still working within them. But the fundies that we're talking about do not have logic or reasoning faculties. It's more of a religious type of mindset, and this is their religion. So they're never going to denounce their religion, regardless of what we show to them. I mean, it's been demonstrated on several occasions that it doesn't matter what you show these people. They're never going to denounce a religion. So at this point, the only people that matter are the people that are watching on the fence that are still, haven't received enough information. Those are the people that matter. Those are the people that we're reaching out to at this point.
At one point, Arwin described something I call being in a stuck record. He described it as chanting. And that's what they do. So you defeat their argument and they repeat it because it's like an incantation. They're chanting.
It's a mantra.
Yeah, a mantra. Exactly.
You have to repeat your mantras every single day until they become reality.
Exactly. The problem is that the mantra of refraction leads to a pit of despair now. But because it's a mantra, they keep chanting it.
Right. And no matter how many times they keep chanting it, it's not going to change the facts that they're working with a falsified R value that they can't prove. They can't prove that we actually do have a radius.
Exactly. It was music to my ears. Again, no offense to anyone else on the panel, you're the first person to have laid this out in the way I'm laying it out. They can't trust in R anymore. They've no longer got R. And it's absolutely the basis of their religion.
Exactly. I mean, this is why I felt like it was important for me to look into this. And I already, knew that the R value was fallacious, but until I went in and tried to reverse engineer it and see how they got to that position is when it started to make sense to me.
Excellent. Truly excellent. Yeah, and the more we beat this drum, there's been a few people left comments saying words to the effect haters, of course. Why are you making 20-odd videos in the last month about the Black Swan? It's like, because it's the best thing since sliced bread. Other comments, why are you putting all your eggs in one basket? And it's like, well, number one, don't you listen to the show? We've got housekeeping questions. I think there's 9 of them now. So we definitely don't put our eggs in one basket. That's why we've got the housekeeping questions to keep us on our toes with all of the various bullshit arguments they present to claim they're on a heliocentric ball flying through a vacuum. So we don't put our eggs in one basket. On the other hand, up until now, and I don't know if anybody will agree with me, we haven't had something that categorically debunks the assertion we're on a sphere. That's the main crux of the debate. That's the main purpose of the debate. Yeah, we can debunk the pictures of space. Yeah, we can debunk the blue marble taken from space. But does that actually debunk sphere geometry? No. Still at ground level fighting about the calculator till a month ago. Because you could.
Yeah.
You could trust in R. You could trust in the assumption that you've got this physical sphere edge for a horizon and you're standing on a physical sphere with physical sphere geometry. Here's the maths. As long as you trust the assumption, you're good to go. And you can hang your hat on that, or could, until the Black Swan takes away the R value and has you still chanting into a black hole that you've got this physical radius value to base refraction on, but you haven't got the physical radius value, you haven't got a physical horizon. It's like...
Exactly.
When's it going to click?
That's the best part, though. is that we don't even have to debunk them. They are debunking themselves with this argument
Exactly.
by relinquishing their geometry. So we don't even have to do anything. All we had to do was turn around and ask them, hey, guys, why is your geometric horizon not where it's supposed to be? And all hell broke loose. And now we've got 3 horizons, we got 5 horizons, we got a geometric horizon that we've never seen, that we couldn't see unless we had atmosphere, all types of silly shit. It's great.
Right. Yeah, for the first time in the longest time ever, while using this argument, I've been met with complete silence. I mean, usually most of the fundies have responses for me for whatever questions I ask them, and they have had some responses to this argument, but I've found ways to phrase it where they just can't respond, and I'm just met with complete silence. And I've heard people on other shows or whatever say that, this is not really a black swan, it's a regular swan or whatever. And these are people that don't challenge any of their arguments. They just circle jerk. So they don't really evolve as much as we have. We get challenged and we present arguments to people, which they take apart. And by them doing that, we're able to progress and make our arguments better. But if you're in a circle jerk sort of environment where everyone's just agreeing with you and no one's really challenging what you're talking about, your arguments are not going to evolve. So I feel like people on other shows probably don't get the argument just because they're not in the same sort of environment that we're in. They don't challenge anything they believe in. So they probably just don't see the significance or the relevance of this argument because they probably just don't understand it at all.
Well, not many people have had the experience of asking a Glober a question, and that question actually, the response to that question literally being the exact opposite of what they've been arguing for 5+ years, right? If you haven't really experienced it or heard it or know anything about it, you don't know what it's like. But that's what it is right now. They're literally denying the one thing they've been fighting for years.
I saw Spurs have a similar experience that you just described. I think I mirrored it. I hope it's Spurs. It might have been someone else, but for the sake of this example, I'll say it's Spurs. But he had somebody completely over a barrel. I think he was talking about radar or something similar, utilising the black swan argument, basing it on the physical geometric sphere edge horizon they claim we should have. He's got the guy absolutely over a barrel, and it reaches the point where the guy just throws in the towel like Cartman. He's like, screw you guys, I'm going home. I'm going watch football.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to go watch football.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah, that's pathetic.
But it's quick. It's a quick death because the death of the concession is a forced attrition. They're being put in a position where logically they have to say that the horizon's not physical, and before they've even blurted it out, in their mind they know that that's the death of their model, that's the needed part of their model. Are they trusted? That was something they could always just fall back on. Just trust in the radius value and you'll be okay. Run everything through the maths, add a bit of refraction, take a bit of refraction away, and the lighthouse or oil platform that's being raised up or dropped down will always work with the R value I've assumed. The moment you start saying the horizon isn't physical, it's not the edge of a sphere, you've got to listen to the words coming out your mouth. The horizon's not the geometric physical sphere edge horizon. It's refracted based on the geometry of the physical sphere edge horizon with 7/6 attached. Because that makes sense. If you're saying those words...
So the last 4 years they've been telling us about how... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm done. I'm just jabbering, saying the same things over and over again.
No, I was just going to say, and for the last 4 years, they've been telling us about how things are being obstructed by the physical horizon or the physical edge of our Earth. And all of a sudden, that they're not using that anymore, and people can't see that they've completely changed their arguments just based on this. This is huge.
Thank you, Babs. Yes. Keep saying it. again and again. I love it because that's the best part. That's the best part right there.
I've seen some haters. I'm sure there's a Mr. Cheswick was the guy who actually cottoned me onto it. He mirrored it. I can't remember the name of the videographer, but a guy moaning about us just having same old 2016 you can see too far argument in this black swan, no big deal. And some of the globe earthers have got hold of that Wally guy and mirrored it on top of an attack on another dude that I mirrored his video where he's gone out and caught a black swan. So he's got the horizon behind the boat. He's saying the boat's stretched, all sorts of crazy shit's going on with the boat. Look, it's definitely stretched. The Globers have got hold of it and gone, haha, see? Refraction. It's like, yeah, you don't get it. That's still part of the argument. The fact that you're latching on to the fact that he's confessing that there's refraction is no different to there being bendy crane refraction in the black swan image. The horizon, however, is basing your geometry of R values on it. And it ain't physical anymore if it's behind something that is beyond where the geometric horizon should be, as in Harry from Sydney's videos. Then you've got an immediate black swan globe debunked horizon isn't physical geometric. Saying it's refracted affirms what he's claiming in his video with his black swan and a boat and a horizon behind it. You're affirming we haven't got a physical geometric horizon, and they're like cackling like witches going, yeah, you see, he's even admitting it's refracted. Yeah, okay, so not geometric then. Like it says in your model with a little X and a horizon next to it. You complete numpties. It couldn't have been written better. Harry from Australia, kudos to you, mate. Declare how much refraction there is. Do it so that it's like almost a baited trap. Because they walk straight into it. Look, the flat earther's doing it. This is great. We can get him saying it's refraction and laugh at him. No, what he's done is he's lined you up to declare you haven't got physical geometry. And you've walked straight into it. You and Wolfie6020, who's in your comments, like a complete moron. Laughing his head off like it's a win to declare you haven't got physical geometry. You couldn't make it up. So it's a really quick death. They walk straight into denial of their own religion.
Chocolate was right. We don't even have to do anything anymore. We just have to watch and see how they rebuttal this argument. And that's gonna be how they destroy themselves. We've seen Bob the science guy completely destroy himself trying to rebuttal this argument. Then there was the other guy that Anthony was talking about. I don't know what his name is. The guy that used a or something with a magnifying glass completely destroyed himself. So all we have to do is just watch and see how ridiculous this gets at this point.
I lose track of their stupid names, to be honest. I can't remember. That was the guy I covered yesterday. I can't remember his name. But these
I don't even watch
numpties.
their channels unless someone tells me about them.
Well, I'm searching these terms to try and find these numpties out and humiliate them.
Mr. Sensible.
That was it. Mr. Sensible. What a complete clown.
Yeah.
It's because they're not paying close enough attention. They think they understand the argument, and then they go out and try and debunk the argument that they think they understand, and then make complete fools of themselves in the process, along with relinquishing the geometry they need to claim. Just couldn't make this stuff up.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Can I debunk something of his begging the question real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Okay, he used sticks and shadows in his begging the question. I don't know if you can see my screen. Obviously, I created this is a Lite simulator. You can find it online pretty easily. It's just Google Lite simulator. Well, if the Earth is a concave surface, as you can see here, and if the light rays are coming in parallel to the surface of the concave, can you see how the light deviates from straight on the concave surface? So if it's coming in, it actually kind of angles inward. So trying to use sticks and shadows is all going to be off. So like if you try to do it all over the ball, your angles are going to be off just because the atmosphere refracts, just like this is doing. So you're passing from a less dense medium to a more dense medium, which will cause the light to deviate from straight or refract. So using sticks and shadows.
You're correct, Paul, but there's a much, much, much bigger problem. The point where you assume that you're going to alter the angle that your stick's pointing on account of the fact that it, in comparison to the other stick, is actually pointing towards the centre of a ball you're presupposing. To me, that's a far bigger problem. You're right. Don't get me wrong. You're saying
Correct.
that as the light enters the
Yeah.
atmosphere based on their model with the sun at a great distance, travelling with effectively straight lines when it reaches the planet Earth, it'll traverse the atmosphere and refract. And you're right. But in the big scheme of things, manipulating the angles to assume you're on a sphere, manipulating the angles of the stick to assume you're on a sphere, that's a much bigger problem. Because they're just inserting an R value.
Exactly. This is a good point that Paul has made, but the bigger point is that they're assuming that those two sticks in the ground are going to be pointing towards each other because they're on a spherical surface.
No, because they assume that it's on a spherical surface, and they'll manipulate the angles accordingly based on their assumption it's on a spherical surface. Not because you are on a spherical surface, because they're going to assume they're on a spherical surface and manipulate the angles to that spherical surface, and from there on in, tell you how it will work to give you the radius of the sphere they assumed at about step 3. But so long as you're not noticing where they slip in the radius value halfway along, and then start calculating it with the assumed radius value to conclude you're on a sphere with a radius value, it's just affirming the consequent.
Exactly. That's the only way they're able to form that obtuse triangle, by assuming that the two rods are pointing at each other. And there's no way that they can prove that at all.
Exactly. Right, I'm going to do a quick plug. So, currently running a GoFundMe campaign. I've been joking a little bit about it during the show. So I've shouted out a few of the people who have supported the campaign, but check it out. I will put a link in the chat box once this video is finished and rendered, so you can go and hopefully support me getting a new shiny iPad to replace the one that's old and tired and has produced probably thousands of videos. But yeah, so check it out. That's my GoFundMe campaign. I'll stick a link to it right now in the chat as well, so if you did want to go and support me, at the very least, go and share it. So if you haven't got any cash to support me, that's perfectly understandable. There is a share button. So go to the campaign, click on the link that I've just put in the chat room, share it, stick it on Facebook, and that also helps in a massive way. So with that, I'll say, if you are watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who shared, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!